And welcome back to another episode of the Cool Your Jets podcast. I am PJ Clark. He is Michael Nania. Ben Blessington, in between studying game tape because he might have to play quarterback for the Chargers for the next couple of weeks, has been bothering us about where this podcast is. Apologies for the delay. Lots have happened, obviously. But most importantly, the Jets are 2-1. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great. And yeah, like you said, apologies to everyone out there that we couldn't have an immediate episode after what was, I don't even think arguably the best Jets win, definitely in the era of this podcast, but potentially of the past 13 years. So that was unfortunate. I was sick. I'm in a new apartment. I was moving. You had terrible Wi-Fi out in Vegas. So the stars did not align for this podcast, but they did align for the Jets offense. So we could hop right into that. I mean, what did it feel like watching an offense where you knew they were going to convert third and long every time it came up? There was no doubt about it.
Best third down team in the league, baby.
What is
this? What is this? What is happening?
It's an out-of-body experience right now. The Jets are first on third down. They're third in the red zone. And it doesn't even feel like they're at the height of their superpowers yet. They're only just getting started. And in an NFL where points are down, quarterbacks are struggling, this incomplete, still work in progress Jets offense is already one of the league's most efficient. And there's way more room for them to go up than for them to go down from where they're at. So it's exciting to think about where they're headed. As fun as it's already been, this is only the tip of the iceberg.
That's a great point from you, and that I actually wanted to bring that up at some point here. So I'll just get into it now. When you look across the league, you mentioned points are down. Quarterback play has been honestly atrocious league-wide this year. It's been absolutely terrible. You look at how defense are adjusting, and I'm not saying to ban like cover 2 and 2 high safeties.
Right.
I don't care, because I think this iteration of the Jets offense, which I would say is maybe operating at like 85% right now, not even really humming yet. I think this Jets offense is designed for how the league is playing this year. You have two running backs that can successfully run the ball, especially Braylon Allen. Again, dude is a stud. Was incredible against the Patriots, and they're finally starting to use him running more outside. I saw you had a nice little tweet thread and an article about that today. Like, I think the Jets are set up incredibly for, throwing the ball short over the middle, taking shot plays to the boundaries, not letting the two high safeties affect you over the middle of the field there, and quite frankly, being able to run the ball down teams' throats. I think we've seen that. We saw that against New England, and you look at the adjustments that defenses have made, a quote-unquote game manager-y Aaron Rodgers and two good running backs is about as good as any team in the league is set up to combat that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting time in the league right now, because I think for a long time throughout the 2010s, you were in this peak of quarterback play where there were so many, future Hall of Famers at their peaks at the same time. And then in the latter end of that, you had this new wave that was coming up at the same time with Allen, Burrow, Mahomes, Jackson, all these guys. And right now, it seems like we should be in that next wave where a lot of those quarterbacks, older ones retired, Breeze, Manning, Brady, all these guys. And we should be seeing this new wave taking over, but so many of these quarterbacks aren't doing what they're supposed to do, whether it's Trevor Lawrence, the guy we missed out on, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson fell off. All these guys who are supposed to lead the next wave, they're not there. And all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers, we were hoping for, can he be above average? Can he be competent? And that could be enough for this team. Suddenly, why can't he win MVP? The landscape is there for him to still be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's gotten better with each game.
3 weeks, he's like undoubtedly a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Undoubtedly, for sure. And that's not even Jets bias or anything. Like, look at whatever numbers you want to look at, and he's right there in terms of EPA, success rate, all these PFF loves the way he's played this year. And, we always thought that PFF hated the Jets. Maybe the Jets didn't have good quarterbacks who were worth grading highly. But now Aaron Rodgers is here, and it's him. It's Sam Darnold. That's the league right now, baby. Sam Darnold and Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, the landscape of this league, it's open for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets to be right at the mountaintop. And like you said, I think the offense is built to play this new modern style football, which is high completion percentage, high possession time, more running of the football than we've seen in a long time. And, they're built to play right into that with the way that defenses are playing and forcing the hand of these offenses. And this particular game, I think, was the peak version of that type of offense from the Jets. I mean, it was so odd once we got a few possessions into this game to have that feeling of when it was third down, I knew they were going to pick it up. I knew they were going to. And that's not even us just saying that now because they ended up doing that. You just knew it in that moment. He's going to figure it out. They're going to figure this out. There's going to be a solution, and that's such a different feeling compared to the many years in the past where if the Jets didn't, fire on all cylinders and convert on first down, it was over. You just knew it. But this time around, didn't feel that way. And it was a pleasant yet very unfamiliar experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I definitely don't think I will ever forget that game. Like that was just an incredible display of dominance, both offensively and defensively. And yeah, New England is bad. They're not gonna win a ton of games this year. I thought that was by far the worst game they played of the three. I still think they're gonna be frisky, but the Jets, for the first time, we talked about this entering the year, and they did it in Tennessee. They did what we didn't want them to do. They played with their food in Tennessee. That game was close. They could have lost that game. There was no doubt from the first snap of the game that the Jets were out for blood and were not going to make this long. And they just took advantage and stepped on it right away. And the amount of times that the Jets have done that in the last decade is maybe on one hand.
Yeah, and it was great to see that because that first drive they ended up punting, but the way that first drive went, it felt good. It felt like something that was sustainable, something they would be able to replicate throughout the game, and it was. They really came out with a plan that worked. They came out with a mentality of we're going to dominate this game. And the defense complemented it with their first drive after the offense punted because of mostly the one penalty at the tail end there. But they came out firing. And just before we get into other aspects of this, because it's not just about Aaron Rodgers, obviously, but it is largely about him. And what a performance. I mean, it was vintage Aaron Rodgers to a T, I think, in the sense that this is what 20 to 21 Aaron Rodgers looked like, his last two MVPs. He's not quite as mobile as he was when he was 27, 28, but the mobility was back in this game. That was the biggest takeaway because, first two games, he played well. He threw the ball really well, made good decisions, managed the offense, protected the ball, played very good, but there wasn't a lot of movement. And I think we all understand that it's never going to be great this year in terms of the movement at 41 years, almost 41 years old, coming off the Achilles. You accept that, but he tapped into a degree of mobility in this game that if he's going to have that throughout the year, in addition to what he was already doing, getting the ball out quick and the accuracy and arm strength that he still has, again, like we just said, why isn't MVP in the conversation? Because especially on a short week too,
if you're getting, 10 yards a game, I won't even say, I think he ended up with 18. If you're getting 10 yards a game at Aaron Rodgers, this is pretty different than what anybody expected, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just pull up his rushing stats. These were his yards per game in his recent seasons before joining the Jets, going reverse from 2022, 6, 6, 9, 11. So hasn't even ever hit 18 yards a game since 2017. That's how out of character that was, and it was on a short week. So people have talked about, sometimes guys suffer these severe leg injuries and, they're working so intensely in rehab, focusing on that one area of their body. And, maybe he is stronger and more mobile than he was in 2022. But it was great to see him have the ability to break sacks, extend plays. And they were also calling more designed outside the pocket stuff in this game than they did the first 2 weeks. A lot more, bootlegs, play action, rolling him out of the pocket. And he delivered those throws on the run tremendously. So it was amazing to see that new element that we didn't see much of in the first 2 games. That, yeah, we know he can get the ball out quick, take his shots down the sideline, check it down, keep the offense moving, but he could maybe move better than we were ready for him to move this year. So that was very exciting to see.
Yeah, and the other half of that is that, okay, so the physical aspect of Aaron Rodgers is slowly rounding back into form. The mental aspect has been on display before, but I think Thursday night was a masterclass in that, in just checking to the right things at the line, making sure that you're taking advantage of an aggressive, younger defense in New England. Like the Lazard touchdown is a great example of that. Is just, you get up there, you see it, and there's a guy you have chemistry with, just flick it to him and let the receiver do the work. The Garrett touchdown, I don't really want to talk about it. He admitted that it was like one of the stupidest things he's ever done in his entire career, but like, fine, got away with one. Cool. Great. But he looks if you have watched, I would say any of the Jets' first 3 games, but especially the Patriots game, and you don't think that this is, honestly, I probably at 100% of what you could have expected Aaron Rodgers to be. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, he is operating at back towards that MVP level of 20 and 21, much closer than he was in 22 when everybody thought, it might be wrapping up and it was over. And this is coming off an Achilles.
Right. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when Brady went to the Bucs. He was coming off a 2019 season where he declined significantly, and it seemed like the Bucs were getting him at a point where he is falling off. But then he goes over there and finds new life and gave them 2 elite seasons in his 40s there. And really, the only thing that I think Aaron Rodgers can add on top of what he did in this previous game is to unlock that chemistry with Garrett Wilson. Because outside of that, like mobility-wise, to expect anything more than what he did in that game, I think we're getting extremely ambitious at that point. Hey, maybe he does have something more. If he does, like, by all means. But,
great, please do it.
If I would have been surprised if you told me he ever ran for 18 yards in a game this season, let alone if it would be in the 3rd week of the season on a short week. So the fact that he's already done that is great. The fact that he's throwing on the run is great. He's been getting the ball out quickly, getting to the line of scrimmage, his arm strength, accuracy, all great. So I think this past game is about the peak of what we could expect this season, which is in this year's NFL, top 3 quarterback in the league. But the only thing is getting on the same page with Garrett Wilson, because, like, imagine I told you Garrett Wilson had the numbers that he has through 3 weeks, 50 yards a game. Would you think the Jets offense was first on 3rd down and 3rd in the red zone? I don't think you would, but despite that, they've still been excellent. And you can see that they're on the verge of it. None of these passes are, these guys are clearly not on the same page. There's no chemistry here. It's very close. I just think you're looking at a guy in Aaron Rodgers who's a very quick decision maker, very precise with what he does, and a receiver in Garrett Wilson who's always been very creative and loosey-goosey with his routes. He's, skill-wise, he's one of the best route runners in the league, but he does tend to take his time with it, freelance a little bit, things like that. And I just think he has to sharpen it up a little bit and get his timing on the same page with Rodgers. There was one play at the end of the first half that really, I think, encapsulated it, where Garrett had a cushion on a quick out. I think there were 14 seconds left. They had no timeouts. They're just trying to get some extra yardage for a field goal or maybe one more shot at the end zone. And, Garrett gets open, creates separation, but he just took it a couple of yards deeper than what Rodgers wanted. Ball goes out of bounds. You could tell that Rodgers thought he was going to cut shorter. So I think there are things like that where you could see the opportunities are there. He's getting a lot of targets. He's creating separation. There are big play opportunities that they're very close on, but just the small margins they got to close up. And I think they will. So once they get that going, it's very exciting to think about what this offense is capable of.
Like a huge part of that is that, especially when you go watch the Prime Vision, like I thought the Prime Vision was great. Shout out to Ben for that recommendation. I mean, it's been clear through the first 3 weeks, like that is the number one issue that defenses are pressing against the Jets is how do we bracket Garrett Wilson? How do we send, the extra man in zone over to that side? How are we taking 5 out of the game? Now with the emergence of Braylon Allen, that's another aspect that I think teams will maybe, hopefully, try to stop the run, and that opens Garrett up. But Garrett not having the greatest season to this point and maybe not having that chemistry even through the double teams or the bracket or the shading has opened up Tyler Conklin, has opened up Alan Lazard, has opened up Mike Williams a couple of times. But to me, the biggest thing to come out of last Thursday, other than that, like, holy shit, the Jets might be good, is right. Tyler Conklin was awesome. And you finally got to see Rodgers utilize that big tight end over the middle of the field. And that was made possible because of Garrett Wilson's existence on the outside.
Yeah, there are multiple of those Conklin catches where you could directly point to Garrett Wilson drawing coverage over the top as the reason why Conklin was open. And this game was not that I expect Conklin to have 90 yards every week, but this game was kind of a glimpse of what I thought Conklin was going to do this year. And I think we'll continue to do, which is, I don't think he's going to benefit from Rodgers in the sense that he's going to catch a million passes this year, but I think we'll see him make more impactful catches because he caught a lot of passes the last couple of years, but a lot of those were just dump offs in the flat. But he's capable of a lot more than that, whether it's, catching passes up the seam, his route running on choice routes in the middle. He's a good route runner, has good hands. He can make key plays for you. And in this game, with Garrett Wilson drawing a lot of attention, Conklin stepped up and showed you he could do that. And just the way that everyone has stepped up outside of Garrett Wilson. Lazard is back. You called it. You were, I think, I did think he was going to bounce back this year, but I wasn't super confident. But I think you were a lot more
the Lazard
train, Renaissance train than I was. And it's here, and he's been legitimately good. You can't even say at this point that it's.
Dude, I said that to somebody the other night.
He's just playing. He's balling.
There's a non-zero chance Alan Lazard doesn't get cut, which I thought there was no chance that was ever happening. There's a non-zero chance he's on the team next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's who could have seen this coming? I mean, it does suck that he mailed it in with Rodgers not playing last year, but hey, we're here now. He's trying, and boy, does he look good. I mean, he's elusive with the ball in his hands. Every single touch he had, it felt like he juked someone out. It was adding extra yards to it. So that's been great to see. And also another big takeaway I had for this game offensively is, this was the first home game of the season. I think this is a sign of what the Jets are going to do at home this year because you look at Rodgers throughout his career, he's been significantly better at home, which is saying a lot because he's still great on the road. And, this was, like I said, first home game this year. First 2 games were on the road against home opener crowds in each of those first 2 games. It's a lot harder for him to be effective with that pre-snap line of scrimmage stuff in that type of environment. It doesn't make it totally obsolete, but obviously it's just tougher to communicate those things when you're on the road, especially against those types of crowds. But you come home and the Jets fans were fantastic when the Patriots offense was on the field, which was not very often, but when the Jets offense was out there, they kept quiet. And that is when it becomes really dangerous to face a quarterback like Rodgers because he could do whatever he wants out there for however long that he wants. The Jets were getting to the line quickly. And, there's still some things to clean up. Obviously, has been a topic. Rodgers can cut down on the delay of game penalties and the near delay of game penalties. That is on him. That's not a solid thing. So he can clean that up. But, being at home, it's just so difficult to play a quarterback who's able to do all that manipulation at the line of scrimmage without being hindered by the crowd noise. In his career, he's won 80% of his home games, which is insane.
That's an absurd number.
So you're looking at, if he can maintain that this year, the Jets could win 6, maybe 7 home games. So I really think this game was a glimpse of what we could see from the Jets at home throughout the year.
To me, the play that will stand out to me from that game through the end of this year, probably forever, is the sequence of outside toss to Breece Hall, -7 yards, 1st and 10, 2nd and 17. In normal years, the Jets are punting on 2nd and 17. It's over. Adam Gase is going to call a draw, and then they're going to incomplete pass on 3rd down, and that's it. What does Aaron Rodgers do? Tyler Conklin over the middle, 22. Move those chains.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing? Like, it's such a foreign concept to me that that's possible to come back from a back-breaking loss of 7 yards on a run play with your superstar running back. Nobody flinches. Nobody moves. Garrett Wilson takes the defender over to his side. Tyler Conklin's opening the seam, 22. Okay. We're moving. We're in the red zone now. We're going to go score a touchdown. Crazy. Just absolutely crazy stuff that we have honestly never seen before.
There were just so many moments like that where you're seeing things that defied your expectations, and then as the game went on, they just became normal. I mean, like you said, that is usually a death sentence for the Jets. You're like, all right, we had a good little drive, a couple first down plays that worked, but there's the big backbreaker. It's done. We're going to run for 2 yards. It's going to be 3rd and 15. Then we're going to run a give-up screen, kick a 40-yard field goal, and call it a day. But it doesn't have to be that way in the NFL. It just does not have to be that way. There's no down and distance you can't throw yourself out of. We've seen it so many times on the biggest stages from the best teams in this league. And now you have one of those quarterbacks who's capable of making those plays, and it's good to see the Jets making the most of that. So offensively, there is very little to complain about from this game. I mean, even the run game finally found its footing a little bit. And I still think there's room for them to be even better, because a lot of this game was just Braylon Allen. The run game was Braylon Allen and Breece Hall being fantastic, breaking tackles in the backfield, and turning potential loss plays that may not have been blocked great into positive plays for not just positive yardage. Sometimes they got 10, 11-yard runs on plays where they broke tackles in the backfield. Braylon Allen.
I thought Braylon was outstanding.
Outstanding. Yeah. Yeah, and I like the way they're using him too, because I think typically with a guy like him, you think, oh, big body, powerful guy, we're going to use him downhill between the tackles. That's not what the Jets are doing with him at all. Most of his carries against the Patriots, 9 of his 11 were zone carries, specifically outside zone. They're getting him to the edge. He's getting matched up with DBs, edge defenders, because those are the guys who are truly going to struggle tackling someone like Braylon Allen. If you run him at a big nose tackle, it's not as much of an issue that he's 230 when a 333 pound guy's tackling him. But put him up against a 190-pound DB, that's when you really feel that advantage. It's what the Titans did so well with Derrick Henry. Even the Ravens now, their zone rate is way up this year because they got Derrick Henry, and that's the best way to use this type of running back. So they're getting Braylon Allen to the edge, and he's making things happen. But Breece Hall, when he had the ball in this game, it was more so leaning towards the gap power stuff. A lot of duo, yeah. Double teams up the middle. And I like the way Breece Hall made that work, because there were a couple plays where, he was patient with the ball, manipulating some of those blocks. I feel like those concepts give him the opportunity to use his creativity, his short area quickness, make gaps for himself, and find ways to shift through the defense. So we saw a lot of difference in how these two running backs were used in this game schematically. The Jets haven't been that, like, we're a gap team now, like I thought, and I think a lot of people thought based on their moves.
Yep.
They've been mixing between these two guys and doing what works for them. So I like the way the run game is trending. The blocking can still improve, but with two running backs like this, they're going to make it work, and especially with the talent on that O-line as well.
Yeah, speaking of that blocking, the one offensive, I would call it a negative just because you don't want to see a starter go out. But Morgan Moses gets rolled up on, sprains his knee, going to be out. Not going on IR, so probably 2 weeks. You get him back after London would be the thought at the earliest there. Olu came in. I thought Olu looked great. Like, it's kind of a, I don't want to call it seamless, but for a guy who was a left tackle forever and came in and mid-game had to go play right tackle, I thought it was about as good as you could hope for. I'm excited for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks of Olu at right tackle and kind of getting a taste of what the future is like. Obviously, that's a big blow to the depth because Tyron Smith, a historically injured person, is now on an island out there, and you're going to have to go to Carter Warren next up and pray that doesn't happen. But I think Olu held his own, and I'm excited to see him on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it was a small sample, but he looked comfortable out there. The biggest play he made, and I didn't even realize it happened live when it did, but his first NFL snap was as an extra guy on that Brees goal line touchdown, and he had the key block. He plowed his man,
which I don't think
the inside.
To that point they had used enough. I would have gotten him into a game as the sixth lineman before that. I think it's a smart, especially if you're running the ball like the Jets are running the ball, getting more bodies out there is not a bad thing. Now you don't have that luxury, but it was a good call by Hackett on the goal line there.
Yeah, it works great. And like, that's not even what you drafted him for, is, goal line power. And yet he's still showing that. So the pass protection, hopefully he could come in and look good there. Speaking of, on that point, quick, I feel like the tight ends in the run game have been the main issue holding them back. Conklin, great receiving game. I think he's going to continue to be a good pass catcher, but he has not been up to his standards. I feel like he's missed quite a few blocks. And Rucker, too. I mean, he was inconsistent last year. I don't think he's as solid as, people might think. Very high ceilings. Like, he'll make highlight blocks, but he had whiffs as well. But this year it's been a lot of whiffs, not a lot of positives. So using an extra lineman could atone for that. Like, maybe sometimes you would rather have a lineman than a tight end if they're going to block like that. So that's just a little side note. I feel like the tight ends need to block better in the run game. But
so you're out here clamoring for more Brennan Bates snaps, is what I'm hearing.
I guess you could say that. Honestly, I haven't had much to complain about with Brandon Bates, and he's been out there. No one really talks about it, but he's playing snaps in these key games for the Jets. I don't know if I expected that, but he played 11 snaps in this game, 15%. So
let's up those. Those are rookie numbers. Pump those up a little bit. That's what we're doing.
How about the Solomon Thomas fullback snaps? What did you think of that?
I was losing my mind. I almost thought they were going to give him a ball. I was like, this is so dumb.
I thought they were. I was like, he's definitely getting the ball.
Can we just get in here? And they're like, no, we're going to run Solly Thomas now. It's like, okay.
Sheldon Richardson throwbacks
from
2013.
God. If Solly Thomas was as good as Sheldon Richardson, we'd be really in business defensively. We'll use that as a transition to the Jets defense, which held a bare bones New England offense to just 3 points. I mean, this was an absolute, it was a teardown of a terrible New England defensive or offensive line by the Jets defensive line. Will McDonald had 3 sacks and is second in the league and is looking like an NFL player. And Hassan Reddick lost another $800,000. So that's where the state of the Jets edge room is right now. But man, Will McDonald heard all of the slander or all of the hopes and prayers to be the savior of this team after Jermaine Johnson went down. And yes, is it against maybe the worst offensive line in the league, but damn, was it still impressive to watch.
You got to love it. You got to love it because There's still room for McDonald to improve as a run defender. I think he could be more consistent at creating pressure and just wrecking plays. But just the fact that he's doing the main thing that Hassan Reddick was brought in to do, which is finish sacks and make those big plays in the backfield, which is something the Jets haven't had a lot of, even though their defensive line has been great the last couple of years.
Yep.
Sometimes they haven't been the best at finishing sacks. Reddick was brought in to do that, and that's what McDonald is doing better right now than everyone in the league, not named Aiden Hutchinson. So, however he's getting them, not all of them have been the most legitimate or anything. Some unblocked, some on stunts, some Will Levis just tripping over him. But he's getting them. He's getting in the backfield. He's causing havoc. He's finishing plays. And, he has the tools to be great at doing that with his bend, his length, his closing speed. He's built to be a sack artist. So hopefully in time he could, refine his moves and his pass rush plan and all that and become a more consistent, well-rounded superstar. But for now, at the very least, he's making the big plays that they need to be made. And you got to love that with the absences that they have right now. But I got to give credit to the Jets coaching staff for this game defensively because they brought the blitz more than they ever have. 40% blitz rate, which is unheard of for the staff.
I think it was Saleh and Ulbricht's masterpiece. I thought it was their best game with the Jets defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not something you really say a lot with this defensive coaching staff because the scheme is very simple. They're very rigid with it. They don't change it a lot. And usually the Jets do just fine because they're really talented and the scheme is designed to just let the talent be talented and not have to think too much. So there's not a lot of times when you say that was a really well-coached defensive game. You give them credit for the way they develop talent. That's what they do really well. But game day, you don't often give them a lot of praise. Yep. But in this particular game, with first time Jermaine Johnson's out, short week adjusting off of that, and against a Patriots team, which, look, I still don't think they're going to win a lot of games, and they're not very talented. But coming into this game, it wasn't the Patriots are trash. It was the Patriots are a gritty, tough team who are built to exploit what the Jets struggle with, which is running the football, controlling the clock, protecting the ball, all those things. They were built to make this competitive game, but it didn't happen because the Jets defense adjusted. They blitzed to account for their pass rush losses, and it worked really, really well. Chuck Clark had a sack. Will McDonald had an unblocked one on a blitz play. All sorts of things were working with the pass rush to help them account for what they didn't have.
I thought it was a great Quinnen game for the first time this year.
And Quinnen too, for the first, like you said, first time truly dominant. I don't think he was bad, but the first couple games, but he was.
No, this was 99% impact Quinnen here.
So he was back to peak level, but the coaching staff for blitzing and another thing it helped with was stopping the run, and the Jets didn't have to do a lot of it because they got up early and dominated time of possession. But early in the game, when the Patriots still had a chance to, milk the clock, possess the ball, and make this a close game, the Jets stopped those early down runs, and it set the tone for them to take control of the game. And part of that is the fact that they blitzed because they were bringing more bodies towards the line of scrimmage to help them account for that. And another thing they did, which, Niners game was something that didn't really work well for them. They were playing a lot of three safeties, a lot of Ashton Davis. In this game, even with C.J. Mosley out, it was Chaz Surratt playing a lot of snaps in their base defense early, and he contributed to two of those early run stuffs that put New England into long third down distances. So the Jets were ready for what they needed to be ready for in this game. The defensive coaching staff made adjustments that were that made sense for the team they're playing. And it's not something that they do a lot, but given Johnson's injury, the short week, all these things, their hand was forced a little bit and they rose to the occasion. So you would like to see them continue to do that going forward as, they do have a few more deficiencies to work around with the makeup of this depth chart at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, another big part of that is what are you getting from the interior? Just as I mentioned, I thought it was a great Quinnen game. Kinlaw might be redeemed? ? I mean, was getting consistent push, consistent pressure, got in there for a sack. Again, like everybody was getting consistent pressure, partially because of the scheme and partially because the Patriots were just pretty beat up there in front. But man, I think Kinlaw is like a pretty good player at this point, and that's a jump from what he's been in the past, and I'm excited to see what the coaching staff continues to do with him. Leonard Taylor finally is activated and makes an impact. You're getting some push from the inside where maybe it's just been Quinnen to start slowly in the first couple games. Now I feel like you're rounding in the form there, and the entire room, both edge and interior, has kind of, rising tide lifts all ships. Everybody's gotten a little bit better to make up for the losses of Reddick and Jermaine Johnson. I thought the interior was kicking some ass on Thursday night.
I like the way Kinlaw's played this season through 3 games. I think the bar that I'm measuring him against is Quentin Jefferson, and I feel like he's pretty much matched that so far. A guy who isn't the greatest run defender, but he'll make his occasional splash play to make up for some of the mishaps. And then as a pass rusher, he's been a consistent provider of energy. He's always in the backfield, caving in the pocket, creating sacks for those edge teammates. That's something that worked really well in this game. The complementary pass rush, guys teeing up pressure that create sack opportunities for other players. So I like the way Kinlaw's played, and this game showed you when you get the best of what Quinnen can do and the best of what Kinlaw can do, that it's a great duo on the inside there. So you complement that with some of the blitzing they did. You get all the sacks you got, and then in the back end, now probably the worst receiving group in the league, but they did what they were supposed to do. Total lockdown, nothing was open. So just a masterclass defensively in this game for the Jets.
We talked about a little bit going into the Patriots game is that you have the luxury of you can get creative with blitzing and different packages and getting weird with it because you have the back end and you have the corners that you're putting one guy on an island. DJ Reed is about as good as with 2 as you're going to get. You have an elite nickel who I don't want to say I'm worried about, but I'm monitoring the Michael Carter situation. I know he's banged up, so I'm hoping it's just that, but I don't think he's looked the greatest necessarily this year, fresh off that new contract. But that's a guy I believe in and I will rely on if it means, sending an extra pass rusher in there and getting creative on some stunts and taking more risks and putting faith in that back end. Like you mentioned, Chuck Clark, I thought was great. I think, listen, both offensively and defensively, I think that was a nearly flawless game from the Jets. And yeah, it came against a really bad team. Are the Denver Broncos a really bad team? Hard to say after they just dismantled the playoff team last week, but they looked like a really bad team in their first 2 games of the season. Bo Nix looked pretty damn comfortable against Tampa Bay on Sunday. So I think you're going to have to take advantage of an injured offensive line in Denver, maybe throw some exotic blitzes and throw some extra pressure in there, hope it carries over against a rookie quarterback who has shown that he will give your secondary chances to break on the ball.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Denver is a lot more concerning, I think, after this last game. Because, 2 games in, you're definitely getting the sense of, okay, this is a game that the Jets should easily win. But then they go on the road and they beat a Bucs team that was 2-0 and just went on the road and beat a really good Lions team. So their defense, I think, has been solid this year because those first 2 games, like, disgusting offensively, but defensively, you look at them through 3 games now, they've allowed the 6th fewest points per game in the league at 15. Their pass defense, they've given up the 2nd fewest yards and the 3rd fewest per attempt. So they could still defend the pass. They still have one of the best corners in the game in Pat Surtain. So it's not a team that should be taken lightly by any means. And that's the thing for the Jets this season is there's no game that they can take lightly. They need to take care of business in these games, as they're 7.5-point favorites, so they are clearly viewed as the better team. But they have to clean house in these games. They don't have the room, especially with the Buffalo Bills looking the way they do right now. One of the few projected AFC powerhouses that's played up to their potential. If you want to keep pace in that race for the division, you have to win the majority, if not all, of these games against teams you're significantly favored over. So this is one of those, but not a team that is a cakewalk coming off of the game that they're coming off of.
No, and I think I'm really interested more so defensively than I am offensively this week on how does the blitz rate hold up to last week? How does the pressure rate hold up? I mean, Bo Nix was running the ball great. He made some downfield throws against a good Tampa Bay defense that is very banged up in the secondary. But as you mentioned, they played great against Detroit 2 weeks ago. So clearly something's working for them there. They're always schemed up well. We're familiar with Todd Bowles. I know that guy can coach defense. I don't know if he can call a timeout. I don't know if I trust his punting. But I trust that he can coach a defense. And Bo Nix looked great. And they lost contain and allowed him to get outside the pocket. And he's a big dude and he can run. So he's able to do that. He was able to throw on the run. This is a better group of wide receivers on talent than New England has. Everybody loves to kind of clown on Cortland Sutton, but that guy, he had 10 touchdowns last year. That guy's capable of making big plays down the field against top tier corners. If you can throw the ball up to him, he's a 50-50 ball guy. Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin are two capable running backs. Again, Jets stymied Ramondre to the point where the Patriots barely ran the ball in the second half, completely gave up on that idea of how to beat the Jets. But I don't know. Maybe they get a couple first downs and they start rolling with Javonte up the middle and see what happens there. Tyler Beatty, I think, led them in rushing last week, if I remember correctly. You know what Sean Payton's going to do? He's going to change out the running backs. He's going to check down to the running backs. I'm think this is an underrated test for the Jets defense. Not that I'm worried about Denver's talent, but I want to see how you follow up that performance against New England.
Yeah, and you said it. I'm interested to see what they're thinking, schematically, philosophically going forward, because this one game, we gave them a lot of credit for the changes that they made, but is a high blitz rate something that's going to be part of their identity going forward as long as Hassan Reddick is not here? Is that part of their week-to-week solution? Like, okay, we're a blitz team now? Or was that just, okay, we're playing the Patriots, we're not scared of their receivers, we want to stop their run game, so we're comfortable with doing it in this game? It could be that, because it was a very good strategy for that particular opponent. Not every team is going to be as weak as the Patriots at receiver or as strong in the run game as they were over their first two games until they met up with the Jets. So I am curious to see if this is something they're going to consistently do or if it was just that game. I think it'll be a week-to-week thing. I think some games they'll probably want to stay away from that. When you play the Minnesota Vikings in week 5.
I was just going to say, I don't know how that's going to work out.
I don't think you want to do that, because just look last week. There was a player the Niners brought, I believe it was 6 guys in the end zone, and Sam Darnold hits play action and finds Justin Jefferson for a 97-yard touchdown, because you cannot afford to leave that. No matter who your corners are, you can't afford to leave that guy running through your secondary,
and you're probably going to
5-6 guys back there.
Probably maybe going to have Addison back against the Jets too. Like, that's just going to make it even harder to that end.
And that as well. So yeah, I think it's a week to week thing where, when you're facing a Justin Jefferson, when you're facing the Houston Texans and their wide receiver group, you probably want to just rush 4 and live with it. And if you're really struggling, you just can't get pressure and you're getting diced up, maybe then you adjust, send the blitz, take the risk. It's good to have that card in your back pocket now that they've shown they could have a successful game with that game plan against New England. But I think it'll be a week-to-week thing. Against Denver this week, I think they should go back to it. Rookie quarterback on the road, coming off a good game, but you're still talking about a guy with no touchdowns and 4 picks this season. I would say continue sending the house and see what you could do. And yes, better receiving group than the Patriots, but I think you still trust your corners against Cortland Sutton being the top guy, Josh Reynolds, Humphrey, Marvin Mims. I think you still trust your corners to win that. So I would challenge the rookie quarterback, blitz again, and see if it works. And you always have the ability to, dial it back if it's not working. But I think this is a good week to continue building on the blitzing that they did last week.
Yeah, I think that would be the smart thing to do, and especially because it worked. And this is another team that I don't think this team is really built to play from behind, much like the Patriots were. If you get out to a 10, God forbid, a 14, think this game can follow a pretty similar script as last week. That I don't know if Bo Nix is chasing you down, and against a team that wants to run the ball first. That your best receiver is a shot play guy. You have a rookie quarterback that hasn't been entirely accurate, is better on the move than he has been in the pocket this year. I think this is but has the potential to get into a pretty similar setup and game script as last week. That go not even win the race to 20, Bob, win the race to 10, maybe even win the race to 7 and see what happens.
Yeah, and I wonder if they even build off of that a little bit and, maybe show some blitz looks and drop out of it. Get Bo Nix off of last week's game, anticipating that he's going to see some pressure, and then you throw some creative coverage looks where you're dropping your defensive end, safeties off the line of scrimmage, whatever. Not something that the Jets typically do by any means, but these are desperate times on their defensive line. And for at least 1 week, they show that they're willing to make some very significant adjustments to account for that. And I'm extremely curious to see how that develops over the course of the season, starting with another game here that you consider to be advantageous at home. But I guess flipping it back to the other side of the ball, offensively, going up against this Denver defense that has been, specifically pass defense, that has been the strength of this team so far this season. What are you expecting on that side of the ball as the Jets look to build on a performance that was beyond anything we have ever witnessed in our, let's say, at least the latter half of our lives?
Reject modernity, embrace tradition, baby.
Yes.
Run the damn ball. Run the damn ball. Give Zero the ball and let him go, especially with no Alex Singleton now out for the year, tearing his ACL. It's a good linebacker at the second level. Make Patrick Surtain tackle Braylon Allen. That's what I want out of this offense. Get him downhill, get him outside, and go impose your will on another inferior team.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We're still waiting for the true breakout of this run game. I mean, season high 133 on the ground against the Patriots, although Aaron Rodgers contributed 18 of that. So even the running backs are still waiting to go just totally pound a team, which I think we all knew the Jets are capable of going into the season with what they have in their O-line and with now 2 really talented running backs, which we did not fully. I think we all liked Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, but did not expect this sort of usage for Allen early in the year.
I didn't
let
think
alone his efficiency.
This had any chance of being close to 60-40 or however this is going to shake out, much less, Braylon Allen's actually good. It's not just like spelling Breece Hall. It's like, that guy's a player. I didn't think we were getting even close to that. And I liked Braylon Allen a lot.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, looking at the Broncos here, I mean, their pass defense has been, like I said, third fewest yards per attempt allowed this season.
Garrett Wilson,
on the ground,
sorry, buddy. I don't think this is going to be your week.
This is not the week. I know we're waiting for it, but Surtain, great pass defense and run defense at, like I said, 21st in total yards, 16th in yards per carry. Looking at their team ratings on PFF, they're 5th worst in tackling and 6th worst in run defense. And that's with Alex Singleton having been out there for these first 3 games. He is done for the year with the torn ACL. So it's a very exploitable team on the ground, especially playing on the road, with Aaron Rodgers being able to, as I said, having the maximum height of his pre-snap superpowers thanks to the quiet of the crowd being at home. So very advantageous ground matchup for the Jets here. So I'm with you. I think this is the game where the run game has its opportunity to fully reach its potential. Garrett Wilson, I think we're going to have to wait at least another week or two. I mean, they got some more tough pass defenses coming up after this one. We'll see when that finally comes to
I
fruition.
don't want to look past this. We're going to break this all down next week. But Aaron Rodgers versus Brian Flores is like circled in red Sharpie. I want it so bad. I don't want to just quit on Denver, but man, am I ready for that game.
So much about that is so fun, but
well, they're playing the best quarterback in the league, so it's going to be a tough game for the Jets no matter what. But
this is like Brock
this is the
Purdy
MVP.
Lamar at the end of
the MVP
season
bowl.
last year. This is the MVP bowl. Whoever wins this is taking it. But we got to act like we're on the team here. Like we're not on the team.
No.
But let's pretend we are and focus on Bo Nix, Vance Joseph, and the Denver Broncos. And Sean Payton, who Aaron Rodgers still hasn't had an opportunity to exact revenge on for his close friend, Nathaniel Hackett. Yes, the Jets beat them last year with Rodgers on the sidelines, but I don't think that sufficed for Rodgers. I think he still has some.
Do you see what he said today? Somebody asked him today, and he said, "I don't, been there, done that. I don't have any new comments." He remembers. He remembers everything. Obviously, I think he won't say it, but I think he feels spurned about last year not getting to be able to do that, and he wants this one bad. I think so.
Oh yeah, for sure. And on that note, did you notice watching that game last Thursday just how dialed in he looked? It was different than the first two games. First two games, I feel like he was just. I'm not saying he wasn't motivated, but he looked happy to be out there. He was, joking around with the opponents. Laughing, just it seemed like he was happy to be.
He was happy to be back, yeah.
But Thursday night against the Patriots, the look in his eyes, and obviously there was the Salah moment that kind of captured it the most. But even prior to that and after, I just could not help but notice how locked in he was. He was never satisfied or happy with anything that happened. The slightest mistakes made him so pissed off. It just seemed like he was locked in a way, like beyond his actual play in the field, just mentally, it seemed like he was so focused through his body language.
Obviously, it meant a lot to him to get back home in a night game and all of that, just like the mental, I don't even know, like the weight off of your shoulders to get through that, I'm sure was great. But I think also part of that is the energy from the fans and how electric it was at MetLife, but also it's his first Patriots game. And yes, the Patriots suck, but this is a team that has tormented the Jets for 25 years. And it's not that guy on the sideline. It's not that guy under center, but it's the same team and it's the same helmet. And getting the opportunity to go blow out the New England Patriots should never be taken for granted. And I think Aaron Rodgers has figured that out and figured out that it means a lot to not only people in that building, I'm sure, but it means a lot to the fan base as well.
Yeah, I mean, he relished the opportunity in Green Bay to beat up on the Bears whenever he had the opportunity. He loved that rivalry over there, and I think he embraces these new rivalries in the AFC East. So the Patriots thing is out of the way. They got a couple bigger rivalries to handle over the rest of the season, especially that team up in Buffalo in a couple weeks, but we can't look too far ahead. The Jets are 2-1. They're not 3-1. They're not 4-1. They got to get there first by beating the team that they're supposed to beat, Denver Broncos. But they are an NFL team who just went on the road and beat a 2-0 team. So why can't they do it again against a 2-1 team? So you got
I don't want to boil it down to this because this is so reductionary. But at its core, Aaron Rodgers can't lose at home to Bo Nix. Baker Mayfield can. No. Aaron Rodgers can't. Can't happen. Can't happen. I hope it doesn't, but it just can't happen.
That is something that I think we're going to get used to throughout the season. And it's not that Aaron Rodgers is untouchable or the Jets are going to win the rest of their games this year. They're going to lose some games, but the idea that these, quote unquote, supposed to win games are truly going to be just that, going forward. When it's all said and done, the Jets are probably going to lose no more than one of these types of games throughout the year. Everyone's prone to a hiccup, but I think this is where they're going to get their wins, is in these types of games. Maybe they won't sweep Buffalo. Maybe they'll have trouble with the Vikings, the Steelers, whatever tough teams they have on the rest of their schedule. But, these games where they're heavily favored, and we haven't seen the Jets heavily favored. Even games that we view as you're supposed to win, no one else outside of the Jets does, because the Jets had Zach Wilson and young, struggling Sam Darnold, not the MVP version, Josh McCown, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
You're doing it as a bit, and I actually believe that is the difference.
Right now, he is. It's fact right now, until proven otherwise. I don't know what the odds are, but the man leads the league in touchdowns, and his pass protection has not been very good out there. So he is a real MVP candidate. But yeah, just that quarterback advantage they're going to have every week changes how winnable a game truly is. Yes, Jets fans thought it was winnable when they played, the Patriots the last couple of years, but it actually wasn't, because they didn't have the quarterback. But now they do, and that's going to change so much on a weekly basis about your margin of error against these type of teams.
What's a great example of that is the Thursday night game the week of Christmas 2022 against Jacksonville.
Yeah.
That was like, you can't lose to this terrible team. And then they did. And Streveler had to play because Zach was so bad. And it was pouring rain. And that felt like the rockiest bottom in a long time, even compared to 2020. That was pretty damn rock bottom. Those games can't happen anymore, and they shouldn't happen. And I don't think the thought will enter anybody's mind that it is going to happen, which is such a foreign concept for this organization.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that game. That kind of reminds me more so than the Patriots game that we just had. The Titans game, I think, is a comparison to how that sort of game could be flipped, because in that game when the Jets started it off with Quinn Williams getting a strip sack, then you had that disgusting 3-play drive where they had no idea what they were doing on the field, leading to a field goal. It was like, all right, even though you're up 3-0, we kind of know how this game's going to go. And then suddenly you're down, 10-3, and it seems like the game's over. Even though the defense held the rest of the way, they didn't play great, but it was a 2-score game at the end. It didn't have to be over, but you knew it was really quickly. But then you looked at the Tennessee game last week. That started gruesomely. It was disgusting to watch what we were watching at the start of that. I was in shambles. You were in shambles. I think all of us were. But it didn't have to be over just because you started that way. And they found a way to dig out of it and retake control of the game despite how it started. It does not have to be pretty for the Jets to win games now. It was pretty this last Thursday, and I think we'll see a lot more pretty wins like that one. But the Tennessee game, I think, is so huge going forward, because it shows you that even when this team isn't at its best, even when they don't start quick, they don't have to allow that to snowball and allow a bad start to turn into a bad game. Unless you get down 40, 30 points, you have a chance to get back into games in the NFL today when you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. So.
And winning ugly is all we're used to for the last however many years. And the fact that there are games to revel in, like last week, absolutely. Take those wins where you can get them. Celebrate. I tweeted out that I waited 25 years for a game like that against the New England Patriots, and it was great. And there was a guy that came up to me in the sports book as I was in line to cash my minus 13.5 halftime ticket. A guy literally came up to me because I was wearing an Aaron Rodgers jersey and hugged me. He was crying. That meant a lot to a lot of people. But you can also find just solace in the Tennessee game, like you said, that, okay, that's a win is a win. It's not like ugly, oh my God, Zach Wilson beat somebody, 17-10 because the defense was unbelievable. It's like, oh, we beat a team. Aaron Rodgers was bad. We're happy about the win, but here's what we can go dissect. Whereas in past years, it was like, oh my God, we won a game, 14-3 because the defense was amazing. Let's just celebrate this. It's such a stark difference between we're celebrating like a pure dismantling of the Patriots and being critical of a road win that they didn't play well in versus any win that, of course, they didn't play well in was a cause for jumping for joy in the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah. So, look, you take them however you can get them. If it's 2-0, which, against a Broncos team that had 2 safeties in their first week of the season.
Could get weird.
Could get weird. Or you take the 24-3 blowouts against the Patriots. But it's just about, not to.
They don't care how you win
cliche, them. But you just got it's all about winning at the end. That's something that we have to get used to as Jets fans. I think we were for so long in this evaluation type of mode where we knew they weren't winning the Super Bowl. So at the same time you wanted to win. You wanted to win in ways that showed the team had the potential to eventually be a contender. Like you didn't care about that week 17 win against the Bills in 2019 was that when they just barely scraped by. It doesn't matter. Like those types of wins didn't move the needle for you, but you love to see those 30-6 wins against the Texans like they had last year. So we were in that type of mode for a long time, but now it's just about surviving and advancing. This is a team you expect to be in the playoffs. You want to win the division, host playoff games, and compete for a championship. So you take the wins, however you can get them, even if it's ugly. We're still early in the season here with a team that has a lot of new players, and they're gelling. Even your 2 best guys on offense, arguably, are working on their connection still. So you take them however you can get them each week. But, man, for one night, it didn't feel great to dismantle a team that has, made just unraveled the entire Jets organization for so long, especially on their own field. How many times did the Patriots come into MetLife and made scar Zach Wilson for life in his first home game, scar Sam Darnold for life on his first Monday Night Football home game? So it felt great to return that favor. I think we'll see a lot more wins like this, but I would just say for everyone listening, just keep in mind, it's not always going to be this pretty, and it's okay to win games.
It doesn't have to be.
That aren't as pretty as that.
And to your point, as we wrap up here, do a quick little around the league. Cincinnati literally can't buy a win. Jacksonville's dead in the water. You think those teams would go take a crappy win like the Jets had in Tennessee?
Yeah.
They're begging for it. Baltimore has struggled. The Raiders are terrible. It's all of the Miami. Miami is begging, and I hate the Dolphins arguably more than I hate the Patriots. So I'm reveling in this, but Miami is on their hands and knees praying that somehow they can get a win with whatever quarterback situation they have right now. The Jets are in such a great spot because now instead of, I'm not writing Cincinnati completely off. They do this every year, not to this extent, but they always start slow, and it's been an interesting offseason for them with all of these contract issues and whatnot. It would be foolish to write them off given the talent that they have offensively, but you're going from you're looking, can maybe 3 teams in the AFC North make the playoffs, and then there are 3 playoff capable teams in the AFC East. People thought the Chargers were going to be pretty good, to which we've seen to this point. What are there 3 potential playoff teams in the AFC South? Indianapolis has not been impressive. Anthony Richardson, I love the guy, has been awful. Houston is beatable, as we just saw. Again, I think that's Brian Flores being the best defensive coordinator in the league, but we'll get into that next week. There's plenty of time to talk to that. But the AFC is wide open right now, especially when you look at the wild card. The Jets, as it turns out, might not have a lot of competition for one of these 3 spots.
Yeah, there's a lot of football left to be played, but a lot of these teams that were supposed to be powerhouses in this conference just haven't looked it quite yet, and maybe they'll take their time to get there, like the Jets potentially could. But here's a stat for you. Right now, the Jets have the fourth best point differential in the AFC at plus 15. And the three teams ahead of them, obviously the Bills are number one by a long shot. They're plus 64. But the two teams after that, the Steelers and the Chargers at plus 25 apiece. And credit to them for their strong starts, but these are not the teams you expected to be at the top of this list going into the season. And I don't know if you trust them to stay there throughout the season. The Steelers always do this song and dance where they win games 17-12, and then they are not a threat by the end of the year. The Chargers, look, we love Ben and the potential of that team, but do they have the firepower to last throughout the whole season?
Do they have a quarterback?
Is Justin Herbert going to stay healthy enough? So in terms of the teams that had the expectations to be in this position, it's the Bills, it's the Jets. Look, the Chiefs are 3-0, but you got to put the Chiefs in that mix. However they win their games, they're 3-0, so the Chiefs are up there. But after that, there isn't another team in the AFC with a positive point differential. The only other team with a winning record is the Texans, and they got a couple of close wins, and they were dismantled last week, so they look very exploitable at this point as well. So the door's open. Unfortunately, the only legitimately dominant team in this conference right now shares a division with the Jets, so that's why those games are going to be so important when they play each other. But in terms of just making the playoffs, you got to feel really good about the Jets' chances right now.
Once you're in the dance with Aaron Rodgers, all bets are off at that point.
The one Super Bowl he won, they did not play a single home game.
And they were not great in the regular season. They just got hot at the right time. So maybe the slow start is fine. I don't know. I'd like to win 12 games, but if you want to miss a few in the middle here and win 7 straight to make the playoffs, fine. So be it. Whatever. So you'll be in the building on Sunday. I'm sad I can't go because it's going to be incredible. I think everybody, if you're out there, you're listening, you're going to the game, bring the juice. Tweet us pictures at CYJ Pod on Twitter because it's going to be incredible. Defensive introductions are going to go crazy, I'm sure. So enjoy that for you. Anything you want to tell the people on your way to Jet Life on Sunday?
I'm looking forward to it. It sounded amped up in there on Thursday night. I couldn't tell. Having not been there because I was at the Bills game last year, I couldn't tell if it was louder or as loud, maybe a little bit less compared to last year's Bills game. But I think it's those two games in their own tier compared to recent Jets history. But I feel like every game this year is going to be loud because when you have a quarterback, it changes everything. Just feeling confident when you show up that your team has a chance every single week and that there isn't a very likely chance that your team is going to just completely bomb. So I feel like every Jets home game will be an event this year. Like I said earlier, I feel like with Aaron Rodgers, the Jets home field advantage is going to be really strong this year, not just because of the crowd noise and that defense, but what it means to have that type of quarterback with a crowd on his side. I think it means so much. And we've seen that with his home record throughout his career. It's insane. So Jets at home this year are going to be an attraction for sure. And you got some tough matchups at home after this. I mean, the 3-0 Bills, 2-1 Texans team that's talented. 3-0 Seahawks are on that schedule. So, and you got a primetime game against the Colts as well in there. So a lot of primetime games left, but I like my Sunday 1 p.m. home games, and we're not going to get a lot of them this year until December. But
it's good. The weather's still going to be nice. It's not going to be cold out. Just enjoy it. Go tailgate. Go bring the noise. Make Bo Nix regret he ever graduated from college after 15 years. So that'll do it. Keep it locked. Jets X Factor. Michael and the gang going to be breaking it all down as the Jets approach. Hopefully 3-1 after this Sunday, playing Denver 1:00 Sunday at Jet Life. We'll be back Monday with a post-game show. We'll preview the MVP matchup of the decade for London going across the pond next week. But not looking past it. Jets got to beat Bo Nix on Sunday.
Aaron Rodgers, baby. What an amazing. What did we watch on Thursday? Just soak that in before we close it out. Just soak it in.
Just let it wash over you one more time.
Just wash over you. Just feel that. Just reflect back in those moments where everything you were used to seeing go wrong was going right. Man, I don't know what's going to happen from here on out. I can't tell the future, but all I could tell you is that Thursday night was for 18 months since Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee, said he was going to play for the Jets. That is what we were waiting for.
Give him your doubts.
That was awesome.
Give him your doubts. The problem is nobody's doubting you anymore.
Nope.
Don't lose to Bo Nix at home. Period. The end.